with PayPal out there in Silicon Valley, and then continued through with YouTube, Google Ventures, and then came back to Taiwan in 2019, right before COVID started. And really, since that period, I've been trying to continue what I've been doing in Silicon Valley. And through the last 3-4 years, really starting to notice the small and the big changes and the differences between doing something here in Taiwan and in Silicon Valley. But ultimately, the goal is to be able to recreate my experiences in Silicon Valley to see the next wave of global startups emerging from Taiwan. So thank you. I think this is right down that track.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, this is Wu Fu. I'm too old and the story is too long to tell. So I'm just cut it short. Well, I'm the master in the, I got master degree because I failed my PhD. Well, what's important regarding Google, I'm actually the first investor of Google. 1998, 40 cents a share. When IPO in 2002, it's 250 times. But I exited average 500 times. Did not get to the high of over a few thousand. So that's how I connected to Google and have the opportunity to work with Google. But right now, where does the money go? Goes to generation X, Y, and Luna, Terra, and FX, TX, I guess. All right, that's enough for now.
Thank you, Fu.
Congratulations, Wufu. I did not invest in Google at 40 cents a share. My name is Kevin Lin. I am formerly co-founder and chief operating officer of Twitch. We were a live video streaming service that got bought by Amazon in 2014. I moved out here in November 2020 as COVID was continuing in the States to get away from COVID, bring my parents out here. And then because of folks like Steve and other folks who had moved here, ended up staying. And after 6 months of, I don't know, soul searching, I wasn't doing anything, decided to start a Web3 game company and a fund. And also, like Steve, really interested in helping the local ecosystem here. Just to add on a little bit to what Steve said, I guess, I find the talent to be great. We have a team here. It's been awesome working with them and lots of great talent. And so hopefully can contribute to the local ecosystem as well.
Thank you. And we also have a special guest. Jamie, you want to come on stage too? Yeah.
Sorry, I just got here. What are we doing? 上来是不是？坐在 Steve 的腿上吗？
我们这边搬一个椅子。
真的吗？ Oh, thank you. So we're introducing ourselves.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jamie. Founded AppWorks after moving back from the US 09 and been running AppWorks since. It's one of the largest startup accelerators in Taiwan, and AppWorks and Taiwan Mobile went into got into a strategic alliance back in 2019. So I'm also running Taiwan Mobile on the side, 2 jobs. I'm sort of the Elon Musk of Taiwan. No, just kidding.
So here's the way we are going to run the game. Okay, I will throw one question to one of the guest speakers, and you would answer the question, and for other guests, and then so save some time for the live questions. So please, if you have any questions, please feel free to let us know later on. Okay. All right. So the first one, I would like to go with Steve. As a serial entrepreneurs, right? So what do you think what is the one thing that's most important to the startups?
Well, I mean, I think that to precede that, I think to talk about what the differences that I've seen in, again, Silicon Valley and then here in Taiwan, and I think alluding to, I think what is prevalent in Silicon Valley, and in some ways it's missing here in Taiwan. I think a lot of it is within the spirit of the whole environment, the ecosystem, and then specifically the founders and even every employee that you hire. willingness to be able to take risks, I think is probably the one outstanding aspect of Silicon Valley compared to almost anywhere in the world, not just Taiwan. And I think that that is key to, as I talk to many of the entrepreneurs here in Taiwan, many of them think about, they have the ideas in their heads, but I think taking that first step to really put every effort into it, not to take it as a sort of a side task that they're going to be doing until they see the successes early on, but really to be able to take that first leap, and it's going to be based on faith. But you see that in just about in every coffee shop in Silicon Valley, people are conducting that behavior, but it's missing, I think, here in Taiwan. But that's something that it doesn't come overnight. I think one of the things that was helpful for me in Silicon Valley was having been part of the PayPal experience, and I think even looking back, even if we had the idea for YouTube, if that was in 1999 when I first went to Silicon Valley, I don't think we would have had the courage to take that first step. But after having gone through that process of going through the dot-com crash, going IPO, the competition with eBay, and then eventually separating from eBay, and all the experiences working with Peter Thiel and Elon, all of those experiences added up to be able to say, I think that when we have a good idea of what it takes to take an idea from the idea phase and then really build it out.
Thank you. I think taking risk is certainly one of the most, advice for all the people here. And I think we have a lot of startups here. They are also small risk takers here. So, I think your encouragement today is so very important. I also want to turn to Kevin. What do you think the one thing that's most important to our startups, and what's the encouragement suggestion you give for them?
Yeah, I think, what can I add to Steve's comment? I mean, it's hard to break it down to one thing. I think I will emphasize if there is interest, I think there's a cold start problem of how to even think about startups for people in Taiwan. There's not a lot of, there's some infrastructure there, accelerators like AppWorks, and my friend told me there's 300 accelerators in Taiwan. I think most of them are probably of relatively low quality. But there are groups like AppWorks that can get you started, right? Then what you need is funding. But I think the cold start problem, that sort of inertia breaking movement, is really culturally supporting it and encouraging it and emphasizing that it is an okay thing to do and it's okay to fail, because the 99% probability is that you will fail, and that's okay, and you won't get rejected from society. You won't risk not being able to work again by doing that failure is positive, and that's something I think Silicon Valley really has great infrastructure for. On if you fail as a founder, there's a very high probability that another company will hire you, whether that's a startup or a big company like a Google, because hey, you took the shot and tried, and that takes a lot of muster and a lot of grit to do. But beyond that, I think it's also focused. To Steve's point, I find a lot of folks who break that inertial barrier and enter the startup world have like 100 ideas that they're trying to build at the same time. And so that's about finding good mentors and folks who have done it before to help you focus down the idea, understand how to talk to customers, and continually focus down the idea until you have something that is both large but also relatively laser sighted, so you can really push towards one customer problem. Don't start cafes and bars on the side is another thing I find a lot of people want to do. And then funding is a big barrier here. There's very little early stage funding, and the reason, a big part of the reason why Silicon Valley started to work was there's a ton of angel investing. So right, with Steve as an early experience, once PayPal folks made money, they started to replant that money by investing in other people that worked at PayPal or other founders that they met. And you don't really see that too much here. You see some angel investing. It's typically through family and friends, and it's at an equity rate that's too high. It becomes very demotivating for a founder if you're giving away 30 to 50% of your company right away, and you lose control. If you get any traction and you raise another round, you lose control. So there's a lot of guts to fix.
Thank you, Kevin. To Wu-Fu, I think because you said you're probably like the oldest member here, and I think my question to you is that from the early days, and then to Steve's and Kevin's generation, and then right up to nowadays, what's the difference that you find along the way, and what's missing, and what's something that you think is very important to us right now?
Okay, well, what I'm talking about is always ancient story. Anyway, well, I think as you say, in this industry, in this entrepreneurship or whatever, the only constant is change, right? So, and I guess so. Going through that, from my generation, which is I even know what my generation is, probably W, I guess. It's actually startup. Again, in Taiwan is really tough. I started my startup and I did about 20 years and decided to move to next phase or become coach. Which coach is not that fun. It's better to be player, but anyway, to doing a startup, there's one. I know this one's changing too also. Anyway, in Taiwan, as a couple of people mentioned already, in fact, yeah, and but you don't have the option. There's really difference. I see. I start coming back about 2000, deciding that, well, that's enough for me to start up and wants to helping startups. And as I say, I never consider I'm an investor. I'm really just helping startup. I'm not looking investment as my really. But Taiwan really, it's changing. I came back about 2000, year 2000, which of course I don't spend here, about half time only in here, the other half still in Silicon Valley. I do observe a lot of changes over the past 20 years. As you people are aware or not, in past 20 years, there's no IPO in NASDAQ from Taiwan. And that to me, it's a big surprise. Well, it's not Taiwan is horrible in the past 20 years going down. 20 years, I mean, in the past 20 years, Taiwan moving up in what, TSMC, now, well, hopefully stay in Taiwan. But it's a lot of, but the reasons why it's disconnected, Taiwan startup disconnected with global platform. One in year 2000, some of you probably too young to know that there's a network bubble. Networking bubble, year 2000, it just crashed down. It's different from this today. It's more the whole overall economy going down. It's networking just came down. And so all of a sudden the people think about it's nothing but good to invest in US now. And so the Taiwan probably is now going to US to do investment, and that connection kind of getting a little bit loose. And meanwhile, I guess it happened to the government used to have a tax incentive, I guess, for investment into startup, and that terminated. So which means that I look at Taiwan, the VC is pretty tough. The VC is so hard to raise money. And in Taiwan, there's not a lot of rich family or family fund. They come from corporation or from bank or whatever. But after year 2000, the bank become the banking bank corp. They are setting up their own VC. Every company is setting up their own CVC. So the Taiwan VC become really hard to get money. And so the funding is an issue. And the funding is so little. The Taiwan, I see in Taiwan, the ideal is always much smaller. And which I understand now, if you can only raise 1 million, how can you put out you could have a big idea, but you won't be able to execute it. So end up that the Taiwan deal is company going, what they do is they have small idea and going for profit. So they are more going for base hit or survival rather than home run. And also the Taiwan market is the IO market bar is pretty low. In fact, so you could easily go IPO, which from some investor, it's good. You put small investment, you could get return quickly. So there's no reason to go overseas, which is not that good. So that is what happened. But I guess today, though, Taiwan, I think is in a different platform. Taiwan is it's become really visible now and recognized by the world. I think it's time now Taiwan, we have to go go for home run, go for global now. I think Taiwan in the startup is separated into 3 classes. One is more the local one, is like a pop mom shop. It is, we have a lot of those a small store in those. That's one class, local. The other one is called a country, or Taiwan country team, which goes IPO in Taiwan stock exchange. The third one that we should go for global IPO. And that's the one, I guess, hopefully for the people here, which all has US and foreign background, that could help to bring Taiwan to bring a few company to IPO in, globally and get Taiwan more visible. I think that the best thing Taiwan can do now, today, I believe, is to connect with other ventures globally. In the past, I guess when we say global, the first part is that let's sell product to other countries globally. Let's market. Today, I guess that we could go the other step, is that we want to get engaged in this supply chain and joint venture with either Israel or even Japan and Southeast Asia in different way. But Taiwan is a great position now to do those. And and there's other country now, people coming over to want to work with us, because knowing that Taiwan now is good in semiconductor first, well, of course, also in the medical device, the medical area, and so on. So I think it's a great time now for Taiwan to really, for government to also to put some effort and to helping Taiwan startup. And government actually has been in the past 10 or so years put in a lot of effort helping startup. Otherwise, when I just came back in Taiwan, there's very few startup, but government is putting a lot of effort. And now we need a kind of 2.0, say, well, yes, we got a lot of startup, but if we don't get them successful, they question. Yeah, we understand the startup success rate is not that high, but it's not zero, right? And if we don't bring them a few success story, then people going worry about it. But then what is that? I probably take too much time, but I want to finish up this and then I'll let you do all it. I think what Taiwan needs in the startup now, I see a few things government can do is to connect to global funding. Right now, it's hard and forget US VC to come invest in Taiwan company. There's 2 barriers. First barrier, it's very hard for foreign investment into Taiwan. There's checking, and I think that has to be simplified or has to be speeded up some way. And secondly is that, well, Taiwan not really a lot of big, great deal. It's hard for VC in Silicon Valley and come here to visit to do deals. So I think to solve this issue, I think they should be creating a kind of ecosystem, meaning that government may initiate the effort about investing in qualified US VC, and with that, and then also them with asking them to helping they maybe investing a little one in Taiwan, early stage VC become their front hall in Taiwan, and they will do a sourcing and connecting the deal back to US. And meanwhile, the local VC, this local startup VC, government could provide incentive to get corporate to invest and strategically to those early stage VC, which they can help, and also maybe also try to attract talents from overseas. I guess for Steve, I guess they don't need attraction. You could take care of themselves, but still, if you could provide incentive, I think Taiwan still need talents in helping startup. I see most Taiwan startup are technology oriented. The business tend to be a little bit weaker. And I think if we could bring some of those talents with those experience, and one of the ways that to give them incentive to in this those early stage startup fund, and they will become a GP, and then early stage GP has to coach the team. It's not just investment, and the coach your team. If you don't have experience yourself, it's hard. It's possible because you could say, well, the teacher doesn't really have to necessarily go running a startup company. But I think if you start a company, you have much more credibility. It's easier for startup team to trust you to work on it. So I think we could discuss of detail. It's too much detail to talk about now, but I think the government could initiate a creative ecosystem to helping Taiwan company. And not all, some of Taiwan company can become global team and go IPO either in Nasdaq, in Japan, or Europe. So,
Thank you, Wu-Fu. I think that's, it's actually a pretty good topic for us to keep deep diving in. And I want to turn to Jamie, because what do you think about why? Just like Wu-Fu said, for the past 30 years we have TSMC, we have Foxconn, MediaTek, ASUS, Acer, and those like global companies. But what do you think the reasons are for the past 20 years? Maybe not so many big global names coming out for Taiwan. And what's your suggestions?
We need to switch our official language from Mandarin to English.
Okay.
That's the biggest problem, because look at Singapore, right? When they started the country, they knew that they had to be the world's Singapore, instead of, even though they're a bunch of Chinese people sort of fleeing from a Malaysian controlled country to start their own country, but they knew that they couldn't just start a Chinese country. They have to start an international country, right? So they picked English to be their official language. And with that, they get to connect much better with the rest of the world, right? So on my way here, I was reading Google's latest financial report and Coinbase's latest financial report. When is the last time you read international or US listed companies' financial report? Right, because it's hard. It's a few hundred pages, and if you're not a native reader, it's gonna take you days to finish it, and you just don't have the time for it. So when you're not educated in an English environment, you're just handicapped, because all of the important information are in English, and you're waiting for the very few reporters to translate that into Chinese for you, and oftentimes the information is delayed or the translation is missing the point, and you just don't get the first-hand knowledge. And if you don't do that, then you don't know what's happening in US, you don't know what's happening in the world, and of course that cascades down to everything, right? So I think if you look at how Singapore has fared versus how Taiwan has fared over the past 30, 40 years, you see it's obvious, right? We picked the wrong language. Pick a language that's only written by 50 million people in the world. Of course, the knowledge base is much smaller and it's less real time, right? And English is used by billions of people in the world. So of course, the knowledge is more sort of abundant and sort of prompt, right? So if any, I've been saying this for 10, 15 years, but it's hard because they will always say, oh, we don't have enough teachers. Oh, teaching English is hard. Actually, we've been learning English the whole time, right? But we haven't been using English. Like the first time I went to the US, I realized that English is not the thing that we taught in school. Like in the US, everybody is speaking broken English. Europeans speak their like random, like grammatically incorrect and full of accent English. Like Asian people, Hispanic people, everybody's speaking like broken English, right? But you use it, then it becomes a tool for you, right? So if anything, I think everybody should start from yourself. From today forward, stop reading any news in Mandarin. Start reading all of your news in English. Then that's your first step to be connected to the world. And from there, then you'll be much better at building a company that is international and qualified to be listed in the US. But Wu-Fu, for your information, there's 3 new Taiwanese listings on NASDAQ. Yeah, Gogoro. Well, it's still listing, right? Yeah, Gogoro, Perfect World, and Gorilla Tech. There's also a new Taiwanese listing in Japan, Appier. So Taiwan is doing a bit better lately. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important. So we need seeing those companies that quickly start from startup. Or in 5 years or so, that it's just now the valuation is over 1 billion. And important is that what's the multiple for initial investor has to be 10 to 100. Right? Otherwise, I mean, you could build $1 billion company, throw in a lot of money in, and that's something we should also pay attention.
Yeah, understand. So, as a Taiwanese, I also like to, thank, everybody's here because you guys contributed a lot to Taiwan, especially like Steve and Kevin, you came back from Silicon Valley, right? People here trying to, to go to Silicon Valley, but you guys actually came back from Silicon Valley and started up your own business here and trying to see how it's like to start off in Taiwan. Steve, you want to share about some of the experiences starting up in Taiwan for us, and also maybe you can talk about like the suggestion for us to maybe to generate more global companies in the future.
Well, I think it's a bit of a follow up from Jamie's point, right? It's during my 3.5 years here, I did start a company here in startup with the target audience being the global audience rather than just the 23 million people here in Taiwan. And the language was a problem because what it's doing now. So when you're talking to the rest of the team, it's definitely a change from Silicon Valley, trying to talk about some of the technical details, trying to talk about the product and the creativity. It's hard to be able to translate that into second grade Mandarin that I know. But I think that there are ways to, I think, circumvent that. I think that instead of maybe going the completely down the track of changing the language, some of the things that we could even begin doing have been done by other countries with Silicon Valley. I think that when I was there, one of the common investments that it would make would be to companies that were started in Israel, but they had their co-founders, C-level execs living in Silicon Valley. They would conduct meetings during the daytime with the local investors and the local technical expertise in Silicon Valley. But every night at around 11 p.m., they would have to stay up to be having meetings with the team back in Israel. I don't see that being done for many of the companies here in Taiwan. But I think that would be one great leap forward in being able to have that connection with the rest of the world, is building that bridge from an island to the global audiences, to be able to have somebody on the ground, especially the co-founders, the leaders of the people on the ground, to be right there seeing what is being pushed on a daily basis in Silicon Valley, and then being able to communicate that to the rest of the company on a regular basis. And I think there are other steps that are similar to be able to connect Taiwan more successfully than what is currently being done today.
Thank you, Steve. So Jason, I want to also ask you, you work at Google for many years and you understand how these global companies operate. So what do you think the Taiwan's core competence is? And how do you think, just following Steve's comment, how do you think, the Taiwanese people, regardless like the entrepreneurs or like young talents, how can they connect to the world? If there's any advice.
Yes, thank you. I have been with Google Mountain View for roughly 12 years, and I moved back to Taiwan in 2020, and serving as the bridge and the contact and the monitoring, and also seeing the first-handed Taiwan's core competitiveness. And Taiwan's tech ecosystem is super strong and powerful in the semiconductor, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and now we are moving very quickly to the healthcare industry, digital medical equipment, and also moving to 5G, 6G, low orbit satellites, as well as the fintech area. And not only talking about the the electrical vehicle and the charging station, and how we can leverage those Taiwan's advantages and also core competence, and also attract more international top talents, co-work together globally. I think that will be the way we can focus and create more for futures growth momentum. And I also just chatted with many of the experts from government and from other leading industries before the meeting. So from that perspective, government is providing a lot of supports like Computex Time, Innovex platform, and also many of the international leading companies are investing into those advanced directions, which are great opportunities for Taiwan startup, as one example. The second part will be, again, I think geo advantages is also what we should pay a lot more attention. When I comment on the geo advantages, Taiwan is really in the hub of the future SCA, Southeast East Asia countries investments. And also, we were just chatting about some Middle East countries also are super rich, willing to invest a lot of startup opportunities with Taiwan's funding direction together. On the top of that, not only on the SEA countries, as 2020 to 2022, the global economy was mainly hit by the Ukraine-Russian war and also US inflation. And from that perspective, the APEC countries like Japan, South Korea, and some other countries remain more funding and momentum to drive for the economic recovery in the near future. And like Chen and others talk about, we have many of the startup companies focusing on the APEC countries like Appier and others with great return going for IPO as one example in Japan or in other APEC countries. And from that perspective, the question is becoming how we can jointly get not only on the technical passion, technical talent, but driving on the local understanding for the new country opportunities, and also unifying with the business development top talents to focus on the competitive advantages like medical care industry. And we are also changing the healthcare approach. For example, to have more sensor technology, AIoT, or driving for many of the Taiwan's super capable medical experts capability moving into artificial intelligence. And I'm more analyzing from those perspectives. And personally, I observe even after the pandemic and after the economic headwind, Taiwan should be in a great position to drive for the continuous worldwide recovery and also continuous growth. And everybody read the news from TSMC, super competitiveness on working with other industry leaders, competing with some US and South Korea SoC vendors. So from that perspective, although we are going through the economic headwinds, but really if we think about those midterm, long-term opportunities, and Taiwan is a great place, collaborating together between different platforms and attracting more international top talents. Like we have the great go-card system provided by the government to attract more people back, and how we can co-work together, not only from Google, but also from many of the successful enterprise company and also startup momentum, expand the platform, and also jointly pursue on the continuous growth for those directions. And that's also what I see for the Hatcher program. We are positioning and we are jointly co-working with everyone over here. So you can leverage more Google resources, and we can also jointly grow our future advantages position Taiwan in moving to the world globally, driving for highly successful digital transformation.
Thank you, Jason. I think not only Jason and I and everybody and a lot of staff here, we are Googlers, but deep down we are Taiwanese. We also have very strong faith in Taiwan, and that's why I think Steve and Kevin came back to Taiwan. So my next question goes to Kevin. You know, what's the decision-making process that you made in the end for you to determine that you want to come back to Taiwan and contribute your energies here?
I mean, it was all an accident. I came out here to escape, really to bring my parents out of COVID. We moved together from San Francisco, and everything just kind of worked here. There was no COVID. The healthcare system works. My parents are in their 80s, and so they frequently have to utilize the healthcare system. And it was just completely broken in San Francisco. And so that alone was enough for them to say, hey, we'd like to stay here. And for me, I love it here. It's people are super nice. They actually follow up. They actually try to help you out, even with really small things, no matter what their status is in the socioeconomic ladder. And it's easy here. It's very easy to live here, which is maybe a counterpoint to the whole startup thing. I'll say this. I mean, it's fun. People here are really fun. They're nice. They're thoughtful. It's very local driven. It's very easy to make friends. In San Francisco, when we were growing up there, our startup, it was so boring. I mean, you look, our friends were our coworkers, and we'd hang out in the office literally every day of the week. We wouldn't even go out and drink. We'd only drink one night a week, which was Friday. We'd go to the store, bring alcohol back to the office, drink in the office, and play video games together. And that was our experience. And so it was a very focused experience. And here's a little bit, so many things to do, which is awesome. But, I think after my parents basically said, hey, we'd like to stay here, I said, okay, I better stay too. And started to think I should probably do something with myself. Otherwise, I'm just going to goof off for the rest of my life. And so decided to start a business. And like Steve had, I had a really, so far so good. We have 17 employees here in Taipei, and they're awesome. This is a game development team and a VFX and animation team, and they've been an absolute joy to work with. I think from a talent perspective, easily just as good or even better than anywhere else. I think there are some fundamental things which a few folks have mentioned that people need to learn: asking questions, challenging authority, thinking critically. These are things that come up all the time at events like this. The same subject matter. English, as Jamie said, super important. I think just a quick personal anecdote. We tried to go to China with Twitch in 2014. We went out there for 5 days to visit every company: Tencent, Baidu, Alibaba, you name it. We met with their executive teams. And by the time we were there, we had only launched 3 years prior. There were 12 competitors, direct competitors, and 3 of them had raised more money than we raised our entire life at Twitch. And they were backed by the largest game company, Tencent, which owned the top games that we were streaming on Twitch and could shut us down at any given moment should they want to. It was impossible. You can't compete. This is not a political statement. You cannot compete with China. And if Chinese is your language, that is your core audience, you're not going to compete. You can't win. They will out-resource you anytime something interesting comes up. Not that the West won't, not that the English-speaking startup community won't try to outcompete you, but they're just not as organized in a sense, right? And so you have a much better shot regardless, and it's just a much better audience segment, and it's a much easier monetization segment. It's a much easier regulatory world in the English-speaking environment. So anyway, I just wanted to emphasize that point. But yeah, I think now I do feel I've met with a lot of founders here. We've made a concerted effort to try to talk to as many founders as possible. A bunch of us have invested in local startups despite the money transfer issues. It is really hard to do this, guys. Like, we need to fix this problem. And so I'm really enthusiastic about it. I think the founders here are ready to go. I think there's a lot of talent that wants to build for a startup and learn, and maybe 3 to 5 years down the road start their own company, assuming the rest of the ecosystem has caught up. That's funding, that's mentorship, that's product. I think product design, product management is a skill that we desperately need in Taiwan. Go-to-market is a skill. Marketing, branding, creating the customer touch point as a cultural effort is something that we need to learn here. But there's great engineering talent, for sure. Great art talent, great game talent. So it's exciting. And I think in my world, gaming, what's exciting, especially exciting about the local market and why I've decided to really stay here and double down on both building a company and investing in companies is in the games industry, digital media industry, Taiwan's been trained by everywhere. We've been the outsource, like everything else we do, we're a giant factory for video game development, animation, graphic design. We used to do work for Pixar. We currently do work for Activision Blizzard, one of the largest game companies in the world. A lot of their development is outsourced to Taiwan. But same thing, those folks haven't been given the opportunity to build their own thing. But the talent is well trained. We used to make big games. We used to make big systems, MMOs, which are some of the more complex games out there. So anyway, in my small world, I think that's very exciting. Actually, it's a big world. It's a $200 billion industry.
Okay, Kevin. So I think let's open up for the live questions. Is there anyone that wants to ask questions? Hey, do you want to introduce yourself and maybe ask question? Maybe 大声一点，不好意思。
Sure, my name is Cole, working on a MedTech startup, a medical device, and my question is for you. So I think you and Kevin, who started a company in the U.S. Successful exit. Before us, starting in Taiwan, have aspirations of the U.S. I think the journey, the challenges, the experience is very, very different. So I know you've been helping a lot of local companies connect with Silicon Valley. I was wondering, in your experience, what are some of the ways that we can best before we go global?
Well, yeah, well, I hear a lot of actual requests in this area. In fact, as I said, Taiwan has startups in medtech area or medical devices. A lot of companies started. I mean, I think it's important that when you start a company, as a Taiwan company are more technology oriented. They're seeing a technology to build a product and then figure out what's the usage of it. Well, in medical device, even tougher in the sense that it's a process you go through, right? You build a product and then you have to go through the FDA process, and people think, well, FDA, once you get through FDA process, it's a successful exit. That's not true. And it's sort of about, well, it's a story about, well, you could make the dog food, or now you have to make the dog to eat it. And I think by just going through the FDA, which is a challenge already, most people started at a medtech company did not know much or not that well known about what medical, the FDA process. And in fact, when I came back to Taiwan, which is over 20 years ago, one of my inspirations is try to to push Taiwan to leverage its strong medical expertise or medical and its strengths in making devices. So those two strengths combined together, plus Taiwan has national insurance, which own the data of or basically responsible for the health of the entire human of the people. If they combine those three strengths together, back then I think Taiwan should be able to building the strongest medical device company in the world, and that was over 20 years ago. Actually, we're working with Stan Shi, which to try to push in that direction. Well, I won't say it wasn't successful. I think, unfortunately, it's probably, I think it's a political issue. It's the political system itself. They cannot allow that. Well, in order to do that, Taiwan really rather than rely on FDA. Taiwan, the TFDA, right? You know, TFDA should be strong and should be ability to taking this medical device and push through its process and utilize it and then and push to the world. But unfortunately, the system doesn't work that way. So if you it's sort of, or you can say, so are you going to make it, trying on our people as basically you don't, the political don't allow that doing experiment on human in Taiwan. But I won't say that. But anyway, so the direction right now is that you go and get FDA first. The FDA is not enough resource, and And you want to get TFDA, you go to get FDA, which is kind of funny, right? But with that or now, so in order to be successful, it's not, it's just sort of, it's too late until you build a product and looking for help. It's usually, it's just like you start a company, it's not, you have to know, which is my mistake also. I mean, when I first started up, I guess I'm also an engineer, and the first thing is, well, my technology is so good. If I build this product, because everyone will come to buy, right? And which is not the case. I guess you have to figure out, can you sell, which market you're going after, and from day one you have to plan for that. So you have to figure out the linkage. And also in Taiwan, I'm probably changing now in the past. When I came back to Taiwan, people ask me, how come most of your company is sold? Your company are in trouble, right? You cannot, why you sell your company? And it's not the case in US. In fact, most exit are through acquisition, not through IPO. And I think Taiwan IPO bar is so low, end up a lot of going after the IPO. And but in US, the bar is really high. But through the acquisition, going to the is nothing wrong, because I mean, you start a company, you're passionate about your product, this business, but you have responsibility to your shareholder and to your employee and to your customer. And for example, startup strength is not to sell product in information technology, to building a good product technology. And then if some other entity, bigger one, they have a channel, they have the strengths to utilize this technology and become part of it. So I guess in fact, the thing talk about, we have been talking about, in fact, I'm helping Taiwania a little bit. You know, Taiwania is a fund, and in particular TCU, which is also in US now, and we try to see how can we setting up probably even some sort of organization or entity to helping those medical device on this one area, to helping to get into connected to the industry, because it's I probably too long to, we'll probably to go specifically and individually if necessary. But what I'm saying that, yes, we like to help, but it's not as easy as thing. If you get a company that's set up that way, or the product is not, it's sometimes a little bit too late to get to a connection. Yes.
Thank you. Actually, it's a very good question, because, I believe that when I talk to Steve and Kevin, you guys always encourage startups to go global directly. A lot of people here also think about maybe try things in Taiwan. When it works, then we can scale. But it encounters to the problem that there's not enough resources for them to scale quickly, and maybe like to be copied. Great idea to be copied by the competitors in the bigger markets. So I think those are also the problems. So I just want to ask the one last question to everybody, like how do you think about going global first, or like either run in Taiwan first, and what's the the opportunity for Taiwanese startups here? Is in Taiwan market, is like in Southeast Asia regions, or is like in global? Okay, let's start with Jamie.
It's so hard. I actually, of course, these guys lived in the U.S. Longer than I did. But when I was in the U.S., I realized that most U.S. startups were also very local, and some of them even only operated in a city. They never roll out to statewide or even nationwide. So, so inherently, I think most startups are not born with DNAs to go global, right? So for those startups to think that, I want to go global, it's sort of a false goal, right? So if you don't have that DNA, then your best bet is to become a regional winner or a local winner, right? But if you do have that DNA, of course, you should go global from day one, right? So, but it's really hard to tell, like what kind of founders, what kind of startup has that DNA. Like sometimes you see founders that are capable of going global, but they don't have the ambition. And then sometimes you see founders that are, but they are shooting to be global from day one, right? So yeah, so I think it's a really tough question.
Thank you.
I didn't provide any answer, actually.
I don't think there's a concrete answer yet.
I think that's one of the biggest differentiators actually between starting a company just outside of Silicon Valley versus starting one in Silicon Valley or anywhere in the US is that when we started YouTube, it wasn't going for the global audience. It was going for the local audience. We didn't actually, it would have been, we were for all the copyrighted content that was being uploaded to YouTube in 2005, 2006, we were protected by the Digital Millennium Copyrights Act. And even when we were getting accusations from outside of the US, we would point to the DMCA to say, we're a US company and we're protected by the DMCA. And if you want to have this content take down, write us a letter and we'll respond to you in 3 to 7 days, right? But you can't do that in Taiwan and say, if you have copyrighted content, write us a letter. And so I think that that is a key difference. And if you're successful in the US, it'll naturally evolve into a global product. But I do, when I'm talking with the startups locally, even if the product is identical, if they're not targeting the global audience from day one, they're going to run into trouble. There are going to be competitors as soon as they see those metrics that are going to be competing from outside of Taiwan.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a tough question over here. What I see would be really each startup should understand the target market and also target audience. And from the target audience perspective, if you want to focus on certain country, not only Taiwan, but also specifically like Japan, Middle East, you have to know and have people locally and understand what end users needs. It's actually coming back if end users will accept your solution and see your benefits of leveraging your either product or services. And from that perspective, if you see you can be successful in a targeted market, and again, there will be more support, more funding when you are moving to expanding market share. Before you expand to each additional market, that's also the discussion. We just quickly exchange information. You need to have the business development or go-to-market strategy. When you are either thinking about some global partner to acquire you as an exit strategy, like we chatted briefly, or when you are thinking about you want to leverage some joint opportunity for similar countries, or for example, how you can go through the government regulatory rules to put your product in a niche spot, which others probably can also refer, but they don't understand enough business insight or technical know-how to compete with you. So overall, the other part in my earlier startup experiences will be you need to have a strategy, which will be either exit strategy, maybe 5 to 7 years, or you need to have a IPO or targeted funding strategy to move forward continuously, or partnership strategy. So from that perspective, definitely like Steve commented, global thinking and vision will be critical, but whether you have the local strategy first or whether you have the global strategy in the beginning of the startup, that can be debatable in different market situations.
Thank you. Yeah, sure.
So that reminds me of the company Groupon. You guys all remember, right? So I think Groupon was an example of saying, oh, I need to go global fast before my local competitors all take over the local markets. And there's a big problem with my business model, but I'm going to go global first. After I take over global, then I'm going to fix my business model. But then that company in the end crashed and burned, right? So I think there's still a fine balance between optimizing for expansion opportunity because there's a potential that if you don't expand, that market is going to be taken, versus making sure that you have a really good business model. So that's why I say it's hard. Sorry.
Thank you. All right, so because of time, so maybe after Wu-Fu and Kevin, then we will enter to the next session.
Sorry, I'm late for a recruiting call now. So I'll just give you some like really practical advice. on the consumer side, I should say, and probably largely B2B, maybe this is less than relevant. But from a consumer perspective, most interesting customer problems are global. If you're not solving a problem that's global, you should think about your decision making on what problem you're solving, right? And go for something bigger. And that takes talking to customers around the world. I think the pragmatic advice I'll give you is talk to people who've done it before you. Do everything in your power to network to people who are successful solving a similar problem. Because you can look back in the, for the last few decades on, okay, go-to-market strategies like best practices and things like that. But really the people who are successful fundamentally understand their customer better than anyone else can tell you, any investor can tell you, right? They were hands-on talking to customers, understanding what their core problems were, what the possibilities of solving those core problems were, and they're more recent, right? More recent information on customer behavior, which is changing dramatically every year. It's so fast how consumer behavior is shifting. I mean, you look at just millennial to Gen Z, basically TV and movies are gone from their life. And 60% of their time it's a third video games. It's like 28% video games, then online media, TikTok, YouTube, etc. And chat and other social media platforms. And like, I don't use any of those things, right? And so I have to really dig deep on talking to our new customer base for the video games, which is a Web3 customer, bubble. It's all confusing, but they're different. The consumer behaviors fundamentally shift from generation to generation, and from year to year, new things come out. So you just have to talk to customers. You have to talk to people who've done it before.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, well, just making sure as what people say, well, technology is global, service is local, and which is from a business perspective. But with that though, I mean, and for the people in the room, I think if you do startup, I do think global is important. It's almost from day one. And it could be, especially as time goes on, the communication, networking, all the information flowing so fast. Almost from day one, you don't see it, but competition is global already. You may think it's a local business, but so I think the global concept is important. But of course, it's sort of vision. You look high, but shoot low, right? You aim at that, and it's just like design a product. You have architecture for the next 5 years. Doesn't mean you implement those, but again, without a vision and that you may making the wrong step every time. That's why I say, well, it's just I always saying where people learning driving the car, if you're driving, right? When you start initial you're driving, you are keep moving your steering wheel. You look so near, right? But now you don't. You just look far and has vision. Then you could moving toward that. But I think global is important, and global part you need global talent and get to access global market. Then get global capital, and that's the
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Wu. In the interest of time, we are moving to the next session real quick. Thank you. 可以大家帮忙拍个掌，拍个手吗？谢谢您。Thank you. Thank you for your help. 好，我们可以移到后面，他们帮你们拍个照，不好意思。这边请，Jenny 带他。